For the first time this season, it's back-to-back Club Dub episodes here on Locked On Dolphins on a Victory Monday, recapping the Washington game here on today's show.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to thank you all for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network and bestowing that honor on all of us. I'm very humbled by it. But it is your teams every day, so we're glad that you are tuning in. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The Dolphins, 16. Washington, 13. Club Dub, kick your feet up, Victory Monday. We're a little more than 24 hours removed from the game. We obviously did the live stream for an hour with Grease and Jeff Scanina yesterday. Had a chance to go through some of the coaches' film, not all the way done, but want to make sure I get this up for the drive time home. Shout out Locked On Dolphins OG Travis Wingfield with drive time. For everybody coming home on Monday afternoon, want to get some thoughts out on this game as the Dolphins go into the bye week at 4-7. And before I get into the game, I did want to touch on one thing that Mike McDaniel talked about today during his post-game Monday press availability, because he was asked about why he was or was not concerned that the Dolphins this season were well-equipped to handle the bye week at the juncture in which it came in the schedule at week 12, when the Dolphins have won 3 of their last 4 games after starting 0-3 and 1-6. Well, and his answer I thought was particularly interesting because of what he talked about this team needed to learn this season. And that stands out to me because it's the latest litmus test, if you will, of like how well Mike McDaniel does or does not have his thumb on the pulse of this football team. And when you're evaluating a football operation and you're trying to decide if a guy does or doesn't keep his job, and you're trying to compartmentalize blame on the coaches and the coaching staff and what talent's available and a youth movement and other variables that are at play, it gets really muddy, right? So the more things that Mike can properly gauge and have follow through with his football team, I think helps his case. So here's what Mike McDaniel had to say. I felt different ways in different seasons for various reasons about if there's a good or bad time to take a bye week. This one in particular, the momentum that we have established was building a work week that is full tilt. The meetings are engaged. The walkthroughs are very attentive with energy, and the focus is at the right place. Long story short, our momentum that we've built up until this point of the season has been built on our work week. I'm not as nervous about the momentum altering. I think we kind of learned the hard way, or we're forced to learn the hard way on how to get the team to play how we think we are capable of playing. The rest is necessary when you really empty the tank, but I think our formula is the guys didn't blink overseas. They really found a way to remanufacture that practice energy and that focus and that strain. I think it's a good time to get a rest. That's the next thing we have to win. So Mike's alluded to different versions and iterations of this all season, right? How this team preps to play a game. They let the process of getting ready for the game become bigger than the game itself. We didn't prep the right way, or we didn't apply what we practice and take it out of the field. This is going to break one of two ways for the Dolphins. Either Mike's going to be right, and I think it's going to be a strong reflection of this was a youth movement. This was a lot of roster turnover. There's maybe some individual disappointing performances that are contributing to the overall collective struggles that they've had to try to re-identify themselves through. That's if he's right. And if he's right and they come out and they reel off some wins, multiple and not just 2 against the Saints and Jets, right? But if you get like hot, right? You go like legitimate streaking and you climb back to 500, hypothetically. I think that's a good reflection of what Mike McDaniel's saying, and it gives better context to that concept that we talked about all offseason about competing through transition. And there's been teams that have, like the Rams, start 2-6 but finish 10-7. The Packers start 2-6 and finish 9-8 and have a youth movement, and they make the playoffs, and they win a playoff game that year because Jordan Love's a new starting quarterback, and it took the first half of the year to kind of get everything figured out. And the Dolphins don't have all those same variables at play, but there was obviously a lot of roster turnover. The other way it breaks is if Mike is wrong. And I think that would be the discouraging one for McDaniel, is if they do come out and this young team does have a setback from the time away, because that further puts the spotlight on the messaging from the coaching staff and where Mike thinks his players in his locker room is at versus the reality of what they come out and tell you that they are. And as we're assessing this situation and this football operation, that's something I don't think Mike can afford. So I took particular note and thought it was very interesting that was where Mike felt this football team was and was not equipped to take a bye week in the midst of a hot start, or a hot stretch, I should say. So we'll see. Now, as far as the game itself, I do want to, we talked yesterday on the squad about rookies and guys that played well. I was very highly encouraged by walking away from the game tape and feeling like a lot of the players that I felt really good about, Jason Marshall, for example, Zeke Biggers and the role that he played in this game. It wasn't perfect. We got displaced on a 3rd and short. It led to a chunk run. Jordan Phillips, Kenneth Grant. Just looking at the snap counts now. Jonas Vainai, I thought, played as good as he's played all season. Ollie Gordon obviously had an imprint in the running game and what he was able to do. And I love that the Dolphins, lo and behold, you'll never guess, it came out, they ran gap scheme. They gap schemed the Commanders to death. They ran 18 gap scheme runs versus 10 zone rushes. That's what worked for them against Atlanta. It was what they kind of got away from against Baltimore. They were more zone-oriented, but ran more gap against Buffalo than they ran against Baltimore. And then they went back to the Atlanta scheme against Washington, and they gap schemed them to death. 18 gap runs, that's the second highest figure in total in the Mike McDaniel era, behind only the Atlanta game a month ago. And it's working. Now, it's not perfect because we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? I think the good is stylistically what kind of run game you called. Both these backs have a breakaway run percentage that was over 40% with creating some chunks. Collectively, the team runs 31 times and averages 5.5 yards a carry, but it's not like they had an 85-yard home run that juices the numbers up. I thought that was a good thing. I thought defensively, despite the fact that Washington ran for as many yards as you did, I think you can look at a couple of Mariota plays and point to that as being an area that really kind of inflated those numbers. I thought from a tackling perspective, aside of the Deebo Samuel run, they tackled fairly well. Bradley Chubb did have a missed opportunity for a splash play. They got away from it. But it's a lot of rooks. For me, it's Jason Marshall. It's Kenneth Grant. It's Jordan Phillips. I thought Trader played well. Trader played surprisingly little amount of football with just 15 snaps on defense. But I think that you get excited about the good, and it's the obvious names, the Devon Achane, the Aaron Brewer, the Patrick Paul, the Jack Jones with the big game day performance that he had, obviously with the interception, but then also he was targeted 3 times for minus yardage and had a PBU and an interception and a passer rating of under 3 on 158.3 scale. Should not surprise Dante Trader or Jordan Brooks with 20 tackles. Should not be a lot of surprises on who stood out in a good way. But I was very highly encouraged that the young guys looked as good as I felt they did on the TV copy in the replay. Because again, that's a part of figuring out where is this team in the midst of a lot of things that changed going into a year where there was perceived to be a hot seat perspective. You're trying to bucket and you're trying to silo issues and isolate variables, and it's hard. It's hard. We'll talk about the bad and the ugly on the other side of the break, including some disheartening news from one of the Miami Dolphins' young breakout players that had me really excited the last couple of weeks. We're getting into that next here at Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no at Mint Mobile. Their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. You can say yes to making the switch and get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number. So if you're ready to say yes to saying no, make the switch. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. The bad in this game. I felt Jaylen Waddle played the worst game he has played since becoming the Dolphins wide receiver one. 2 drops, kind of uncharacteristic from him, despite what they would tell you about Jaylen Waddle. I think he was credited with 1 drop all season. Has had several in-traffic, strong receptions with his hands. But not on this day. This was not the strongest of performances from Jaylen Waddle. Now, fortunately for Miami, I thought there was more than one occasion where Malik Washington, I thought, picked up the slack and ran hard, earned hard yards. Obviously, the running game doing what it did. You had enough, right? Obviously, you had enough to move the ball. You averaged the same amount of yards per play that Washington did, but not finish drives in the red area and punch the ball into the end zone when you're in short yardage situations. I was surprised to see just how little Hayden Russi played, although that comes with the acknowledgement of Julian Hill, who I thought played well in his handful of opportunities in the passing game, but he was predominantly out there in the run game. You know, they kind of are flip-flopping him and Greg Dulcich, where there's a little bit of a tell, I think, that they have to combat at this stage. Julian Hill, this I would classify this as a bad, in finding more overlap to not have tells with your personnel. Julian Hill blocked on 18 of his 26 offensive reps on run assignments, so not pass blocking. So his run-pass split was 18-8 for Julian Hill. Now, Greg Dulcich played 30 snaps, and he had a 2-to-1 ratio of pass reps versus run block reps. And I understand now there's an offensive lineman that's a piece of that puzzle as well. The Dolphins came out and they went jumbo with Daniel Brunskill and 6 offensive linemen. He had 22 reps and opportunities in this game, and they did not pass on a single one of those reps per the snap breakdown. So these flex and Y formation adjusters, if you will, the F and the Y designations in this offense, this game, if you're coming out of this bye week against Washington, what I would hope is that you recognize some of the telegraphing that can be taking place if that's your personnel usage in splits. Right, that goes all the way back to Mike Gesicki on the franchise tag and the concerns about what frequency of, as a tight end who's supposed to be like the great mismatch, great ambiguous skill player. You're not ambiguous with a flex tight end if the flex tight end's on the field and you pass the ball 80% of the time. It just means you're passing the ball. And if you're running the ball, you're not running it at that player. And if you are running at that player, that guy's probably going to lose his one-on-one and you're not going to get a lot of yards. Right. So that for me offensively was an area where I would be pretty gassed up and excited if we come out of the break and we play New Orleans and the first couple reps that Daniel Brunskill is out there at 6-man protections and we're passing the football, right, to avoid. And obviously it's tough when I think it'd probably be a different story if you still had Tyreek Hill and you could put them all out there together and you would still get like favorable coverage spacing or what you would feel would be coverage spacing. Because how teams put the umbrella up with all that speed on the field at the same time. And you don't have that right now, and I get that. But that's something that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. I was pretty neutral on Tua Tagovailoa in this game. I know Grease on the squad show yesterday was ready to kick him off the team. It felt like I thought he was fine. The schemed targets here. Screen passes, play action pass. Those are the areas that Tua is at his best because he's got good deceptiveness with his ball handling. He's got a good quick release. He can quickly manipulate defenders with his ball handling before getting the ball out fast. It was about 50% of your dropbacks, or not 50%. You're about 46% for the season. You only had 3 true pass set opportunities for offensive linemen in this game on your, 27 dropbacks. You had 12 play action attempts and you had 7 screen attempts. So it's like 20 out of 27 or 19 out of 27 were some kind of scheme related throw. You're trying to maximize what he does best. You're not really sure what you're getting. And I think that was something that was very apparent to me with Dan Quinn and the defensive coordinator change. Not a lot of confidence in what are they giving us? What are we going to get? And it was a lot of soft and shell. And, I think Miami probably got caught up in some de facto take quick throws to the perimeter skill players because they're playing off and high and try to set up run after catch in that regard. And I just think that element of this playbook has probably played itself out a little bit, in my opinion. Another one of the bad is the end of the JuJu Brents era this season in Miami. We hardly knew you, JuJu. He's having season-ending or perceived to be, reported to be. Mike McDaniel kind of passed on being definitive with it. But season-ending foot surgery. This week, after leaving the game early, he played 49 snaps defensively against the Commanders. He was fine in the game. He was involved in run support. I thought he was pretty good as a tackler. He had was credited with one missed tackle, but I thought the way that he came up on the edges and continued to support the run was what you wanted it to be. We just, unfortunately, that's kind of been the book on JuJu, and that was part of why JuJu didn't stick in Indy this year. He's Destin Adams of A to Z Sports gave me like the full laundry list of the injuries that he had in Indianapolis, and there was a quad injury that cost him more than a month his rookie season. There was a knee injury that had him on IR for like 16 weeks in 2024. He had a hamstring in 2025 before or during training camp that cost him valuable reps. And now we're two weeks into a starting role here. We play like 120 snaps, and now we're down with season-ending foot injury. It's a bummer. But that's, he's under contract next year. He's on the 3rd year of a 4-year rookie contract. He'll be back. I think this is just the unfortunate reminder that like we can't afford to put eggs in this basket. I would want and expect JuJu Brents to be back. I want him back competing for a spot on this roster, but I can't go into this offseason now saying, hey, really like what we got from JuJu this year. Let's plan on him being a starter for us next year. That ship has sailed, unfortunately, with a development like this based on the rest of his NFL body of work. We just have to be realistic about it. All right, some final thoughts on this game. We're getting into that next here. Locked on Dolphins. make sure you guys stick with us. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or if you want to ride a hot hand throughout the course of a game, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is the one that's making that late-game push. And with the Dolphins on a bye this upcoming week, your NFL action, you certainly use a little extra juice this weekend. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets to use after your first $5 bet win. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Kyle Krabs, host Locked On Dolphins. Heartfelt thank you again for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Your team every day. We say it and we live it. All of your teams, every sport, you name it, we have it. And very cool to see all of you who are tuning in to all of our programming as we have a blast working our way through the heart of this season after a very miserable first 6 weeks of the season for the Miami Dolphins, at least here on Locked On Dolphins. So some of the ugly. I can't do it anymore with Cole Strange, man. I am ready for anybody else to be in that spot. So I don't know if we can get Andrew Meyer out and if Andrew Meyer can play guard. I don't know what we need to do to get James Daniels out on the practice field and get him activated. And it would be the 1 week where it would be like the ultimate wild card on a guy potentially having his practice window opened and then playing, because we don't know what's going to be happening for the next 9 days until the Dolphins are back at a practice report and have an injury report after the game. But Cole Strange, I took some exception with some of the short yardage stuff and Devon Achane getting the ball down there in the low red zone and as compared to potentially Ollie Gordon, where maybe he can get his pads down and run through that tackle challenge from Javon Kinlaw before the failed fourth down run to Ollie Gordon, right? Which looked like it was weak side zone. Looked like it was the call. But there's no push. There's no forcible contact. I think he'd be a player that would be much better center implemented in this offense at center. I think Cole Strange is the backup to Aaron Brewer. Like, if you want to tell me he stays on the roster, I would get it. But I don't think he plays with anywhere near the same level of edge as Aaron Brewer does. He's not as dynamic as Aaron. He doesn't have the range that Aaron has. He obviously hasn't been in the system, but since week 4, when he took over at the starting right guard, it's just a really limiting spot. And despite all of it, they had all the success with pin and pull and getting on the outside and these fold concepts, running to the right-hand side. But then you get these short yardage situations and it's mano-a-mano where just don't get destroyed and we're going to get a touchdown in a pivotal moment of the game. And he's lying on his belly perpendicular to the goal line. And the guy who he's blocking is making the tackle in the hole at the 1 yard line. On a sequence before that, there was a third down where we get the ball to Achane, and Achane's we're in the red zone again before the Ollie Gordon touchdown, and Cole Strange is the guy that's out in front, and he's got 3 guys to pick from. Attack any one of them and throw a physical block, and it's going to create a crease that Achane can play through. But instead, it's just a little too hesitant with not a lot of confidence, and these defenders they attack the block. And he gets knocked back into Achane, who gets stood up at the 1 yard line. So that to me is an experience that I'm ready for something else in that spot. I don't know that we're going to get it. We'll probably get Austin Jackson back this week. I don't think the team's going to be overly keen on moving Larry Borom inside. I thought Borom played a nice game. I don't think he was the best tackle in football, which I think is what PFF graded him as. But I do have the snap counts up, and I can see he obviously gets a very lofty grade. I didn't think he was quite there, but I did think he played yet another sturdy performance. And I think Larry Borom is doing pretty well for himself. He's 33 snaps away for a career high in a single season in snaps. He's not blowing the doors off anything. And I understand there's context behind how quickly the Dolphins get the ball out and what that means in pass protection. But it's almost the same kind of thing as Aaron Brewer, where Aaron Brewer was super maligned in Tennessee because he's blocking for 3.2 seconds for Will Levis. And you're just not holding up well in pass protection as a result. And they had played him at guard for a while, and then they ended up kicking him outside or inside the center. But it was his first time playing center in like 5-6 years. And it was just very unstable situation with quarterback play that was equally unstable. And the book kind of got written. Well, Larry, in 4 years in Chicago, you know what he was doing blocking for Caleb Williams? Blocking for 3.2 seconds at tackle. It's a lot of stress on offensive linemen to play that way. And he's setting career highs in a number of marks. He's given up 15 pressures in 371 pass block reps. He's given up 3 pressures in the last 5 games combined. And he's doing that where you can see, I think he is kind of settling in a little bit. Now, would I want him as a long-term starter? No. But I think Larry Borom, if they end up stabilizing this coaching staff and they get enough wins where it satisfies, where they feel confident in moving forward and saying, we want somebody else to pick the groceries and do the shopping for this collection because we think we can win with this group. And whether you think that's right or wrong, it's on the table. I would want Larry Borom back next year. I would. 26-year-old swing tackle with experience playing 4 spots on the offensive line. Now a year potentially in the system. I'd want him back. I would. And I thought he played well. He probably played his best game of the season against Washington, which is not a huge surprise because Washington doesn't really have an edge group that's going to press and stress you. So sorry for getting into the ugly and getting on a soapbox about Larry Borom. As I get to and continue to eval this group defensively, as far as the ugly, we gotta get some more juice here in the pass rush room. And that's alarming for the edge guys. Now, Bradley Chubb didn't have 10 pressures like he did against Buffalo. He didn't finish a few of the opportunities that he had for splashes. But he has 4 pressures. He leads the team in pressures. Chop plays 37 snaps in this game. Matthew Judon plays 38 snaps in this game. So you get 75 snaps from those 2 guys combining at 2 pressures. I mean, and one of those guys is a 2024 first-round pick. You're going to have to build a lot of this roster up. And that includes probably another dynamic player who complements Jordan Brooks at linebacker. That includes the whole secondary, minus whatever young guys you want to bring back. And I think that includes portions of the safety room. Well, maybe Trader will be back for sure as a rookie that's on a rookie deal. Maybe Minka's back if you have a stable group and you sustain the coaching staff. But between Melifonwu and Ashton Davis, I think you probably need to churn some there too. But the edge group's going to need attention. And that's discouraging because of the investments that the team has spent into that room. But that's water under the bridge for a guy who's no longer here, right? Chris is gone. But that was the uglies for me, was Cole Strange and then the pass rush in this game. And I understand it's a mobile quarterback. You're a little bit more calculated. Man, you get 75 snaps out of Matthew Judon, Chop Robinson, get 2 pressures. That's not good enough, especially for a guy with the first-round pedigree that had 50-something pressures last year. That performance needs to be more disruptive, in my opinion. So that's going to do it for us here on this Victory Monday episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys as checking the show. Make it a great rest of your day. We will talk to you all again tomorrow, and it's bye week content. So we're going to get pretty into the weeds on some executive and NFL GM and Dolphins vacancy stuff. There were some reports on how well perceived the Dolphins vacancy is over the weekend. We'll get into all that tomorrow, starting tomorrow. So your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Kyle Krabs, appreciate y'all for checking out the show. Back to talk to y'all again tomorrow. Go Fins.